The boy everyone mocked. The morning sun had barely risen over the small village of Green Valley when laughter echoed through the dusty streets. Not the laughter of joy. The laughter of people who believed someone else's dream was impossible. There he goes again. Look at him. The fool with the shovel. 19-year-old Ethan lowered his head and kept walking. In one hand, he carried an old rusted shovel. On his back hung a worn-out cloth bag holding a few seeds, a bottle of water, and a notebook that had once belonged to his grandfather. He didn't reply. He never did. For almost 2 years, this had become his daily routine. Wake up before sunrise. Walk 3 kilometers to a barren piece of land. Work until sunset. Return home exhausted. And repeat. The land was the worst in the village. Dry. Rocky. Cracked by years of drought. No one wanted it. Even the village chief once called it land without hope. But Ethan saw something different. He saw possibility. Years earlier, Ethan's family had owned one of the largest farms in the area. His father was known as one of the hardest working farmers anyone had ever met. His mother filled their small home with warmth, laughter, and hope. Life wasn't luxurious. But it was peaceful. Everything changed during one terrible summer. Months passed without rain. The crops died. Animals became weak. Debt began to grow. To save the family, Ethan's father borrowed money from a wealthy landlord named Victor. Victor was respected by some. Feared by many. He smiled while lending money. But his contracts destroyed lives. When another drought arrived the following year, Ethan's father couldn't repay the debt. Victor took everything. The family lost their farm. Their animals. Their equipment. Even their home. Within weeks, Ethan's father became seriously ill from stress and exhaustion. One rainy evening. He never woke up again. Ethan was only 16. That day changed him forever. After the funeral, many villagers offered sympathy. But sympathy disappears faster than hardship. Within months, most people forgot about them. Ethan and his mother moved into a tiny wooden hut near the edge of the village. His mother worked sewing clothes late into every night. Ethan accepted every small job he could find. Carrying sacks. Repairing fences. Cleaning barns. Every coin mattered. One evening, while cleaning an old storage box, Ethan discovered his grandfather's notebook. The cover was faded. The pages were yellow. Inside were handwritten lessons collected over decades. One sentence caught Ethan's attention. When people laugh at your dream, they are measuring it with their limits, not yours. He read those words again. And again. That night, something changed inside him. The next morning, Ethan walked to the abandoned land outside the village. It had been untouched for years. Large stones covered the ground. Dead trees stood like silent skeletons. The soil looked impossible to farm. Everyone who saw it shook their heads. This place is cursed. You'll waste your youth. Go find a real job. Even his closest childhood friend, Noah, laughed. Ethan, dreams don't grow crops. Ethan smiled gently. No. People do. Every morning became a battle. He removed stones one by one. Some were so heavy that he could barely move them. His hands developed blisters. His shoulders ached constantly. Many evenings he returned home too tired to eat. His mother watched silently. She worried. One night she finally asked, "Son, why this land? There are easier ways to earn money." Ethan looked toward the small window. Because everyone believes it's impossible. If I can bring life back to dead land, I'll prove that impossible is sometimes just another word for abandoned. His mother smiled through tears. For the first time since his father's death, she saw hope in her son's eyes. Weeks turned into months. Nothing grew. Not a single green leaf. The villagers laughed louder than before. Children copied adults. Whenever Ethan passed by, they pretended to dig imaginary soil and burst into laughter. Every insult landed like another stone on his shoulders. But he kept walking. Kept digging. Kept believing. Because deep inside, he wasn't fighting the land anymore. He was fighting the voice that whispered, "Maybe they're right." And that voice was becoming harder to silence every single day, the storm that broke everything. The next morning, Ethan stood alone in the middle of the barren field. The cold wind blew dust across the cracked earth. He looked around at months of hard work. Hundreds of stones had been removed. Small trenches had been dug. The soil had slowly begun to soften. But there was still no sign of life. For the first time, doubt entered his heart. What if everyone is right? What if this land can never be saved? Before he could answer himself, he heard a familiar voice. "Ethan." It was Noah. His childhood friend. The same friend who NCE dreamed of becoming a farmer with him. Noah walked over, carrying a basket of fresh vegetables. "I got a job on Victor's farm," he said proudly. "The pay is good. He needs more workers." Ethan stayed silent. Noah sighed. "Come with me. You've already wasted 2 years. No one will blame you for giving up." Ethan smiled weakly. "If I quit now, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if one more day could have changed everything." Noah shook his head. "Dreams don't feed families." Then he walked away. Ethan watched him disappear down the road. His words echoed in Ethan's mind all day. That evening, Ethan returned home to heartbreaking news. His mother was sick. She had hidden her illness for weeks because she couldn't afford a doctor. The little money they had saved disappeared on medicine. Now they had almost nothing left. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Rain tapped gently against the roof. He opened his grandfather's notebook again. Most pages contained lessons about farming. But near the end, he found a folded piece of paper he had never noticed before. Inside was an old hand-drawn map. On the back were 5 words. "Water sleeps beneath Stone Hill." Ethan stared at the map. Stone Hill. It was only a few hundred meters from the abandoned field. His grandfather had never mentioned it. Could this be the reason he believed the land could live again? Before sunrise, Ethan grabbed a shovel and followed the map. The hill was covered with huge rocks. For hours, he searched. Nothing. Just as he was about to leave, his shovel struck something unusual. Not rock. Not soil. It sounded hollow. His heartbeat quickened. He cleared away the dirt. A flat stone slab appeared beneath the ground. With all his strength, he pushed. The stone slowly moved. Suddenly, a faint sound reached his ears. Drip. 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 Water. His eyes widened. There was a narrow underground spring hidden beneath the hill. It wasn't a river. But it was enough. Enough to change everything. Ethan laughed for the first time in months. Not because he had succeeded. Because now, he had hope. For the next several weeks, Ethan worked harder than ever. Every morning before sunrise, he carried buckets of water from the hidden spring. Back and forth. Again. And again. Nearly 50 trips every single day. His shoulders became stronger. His hands became rougher. His determination became unbreakable. Some villagers noticed. Others mocked him even more. Now he's carrying water to dead dirt. He has finally lost his mind. Victor heard the rumors too. One afternoon, the wealthy landlord rode to Ethan's field on horseback. He looked around and laughed. "So this is your great dream? You could have worked for me. Instead, you've become the village's biggest joke." Ethan stood quietly. Victor smiled. I'll make you an offer. I'll buy this useless land. I'll even pay you enough to start over. The amount he offered was more money than Ethan had ever seen. For a moment, he imagined paying for his mother's treatment, buying a real home, living without hunger. Victor noticed the hesitation. I knew you'd understand eventually. Ethan looked at the field, then at the hidden hill beyond it. He folded the contract without signing it. No. Victor's smile disappeared. You'll regret this. He climbed onto his horse and rode away. Days later, dark clouds gathered across the sky. The strongest storm in years swept through the village. Thunder shook the mountains. Rain fell like waterfalls. Powerful winds tore trees from the ground. Ethan rushed toward his field. His heart pounded. When he arrived, his worst nightmare had become reality. The small irrigation channels he had built were destroyed. Young plants had been washed away. Months of work gone. He dropped to his knees. Mud covered his clothes. Tears mixed with the rain. For several minutes, he didn't move. Then he heard soft footsteps behind him. It was his mother. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Ethan, look around. He slowly lifted his head. The rain had stopped. Water covered every corner of the field. The dry land that had rejected life for years had finally absorbed enough water. His mother smiled. You didn't lose everything today. You prepared this land for the rain. Ethan looked across the field. For the first time, he realized something incredible. The storm hadn't destroyed his dream. It had tested it. And this time, his dream had survived. Far away, hidden behind a tree, Victor watched silently. For the first time in many years, the rich landlord wasn't smiling. Because he had just realized. The boy everyone laughed at was no longer losing. The day they stopped laughing, final. The morning after the storm, Ethan walked slowly toward his field. He expected to see destruction. Instead, he stopped in his tracks. Tiny green shorts were pushing through the soil. One. Then another. Then hundreds more. For a long moment, Ethan couldn't speak. The same land everyone had called dead was finally alive. Tears filled his eyes. Not because the plants had grown, but because they had proved one thing. Faith and hard work can stay invisible for a long time. Until one day, they become impossible to ignore. Over the next few months, Ethan worked harder than ever before. Every sunrise, he watered the crops from the hidden spring. He built stronger irrigation channels. He learned to protect the young plants from insects. He read every page of his grandfather's notebook. Each mistake became a lesson. Each failure became experience. Slowly, the empty field transformed into a sea of green. People sing by stopped walking. Is that Ethan's land? It can't be. I thought nothing could grow there. Word spread from village to village. The boy everyone laughed at had achieved the impossible. But not everyone was happy. Victor wasn't. The wealthy landlord stood on the balcony of his mansion, staring at Ethan's flourishing farm. For years, people had depended on him. They borrowed his money, worked on his land, followed his rules. If Ethan succeeded, others would stop believing they needed Victor. His power would disappear. Victor called two of his workers. I don't care how you do it. Destroy those crops before harvest. That night, two men crept toward Ethan's farm. The moon was hidden behind clouds. They carried cans of oil and torches. As they stepped into the field, a loud bark shattered the silence. A stray dog Ethan had rescued months earlier rushed toward them. The men panicked. Their torches fell into the mud. They ran. The noise woke Ethan. By the time he reached the field, the intruders were gone. Only footprints remained. Ethan looked at the frightened dog. He smiled and gently placed a hand on its head. You protected everything. Sometimes, the kindness you show the world returns when you need it most. Harvest season finally arrived. The village gathered to watch. Nobody believed their eyes. Golden wheat stretched across land that had once been nothing but dust. Children ran through the fields laughing. The same children who had once mocked Ethan. Old farmers bent down to examine the soil. It's richer than ours. How did he do it? The village chief stepped forward. Ethan, please tell us your secret. Everyone fell silent. Victor stood in the crowd, waiting. Ethan looked around at every familiar face. The people who had doubted him. The people who had laughed. The people who had ignored him. He smiled. My secret isn't hidden in the soil. It's hidden in every day I wanted to quit, but didn't. Silence filled the air. Then Ethan continued. People think success begins when others notice you. They're wrong. Success begins the moment you decide that your dream is more important than other people's opinions. Those words spread far beyond the village. Travelers came to learn from Ethan. Young farmers asked for advice. Instead of charging money, Ethan taught them freely. If knowledge helped me, it should help everyone. Within a few years, the entire region changed. Fields once abandoned became productive again. Families escaped poverty. Children returned to school. Hope returned to places where despair had lived for years. One cold winter morning, Victor arrived at Ethan's farm. But this time, he wasn't wearing expensive clothes. His business had failed. Many workers had left him. He looked older, tired, broken. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Finally, Victor lowered his head. I spent my whole life trying to control people. You spent yours helping them. I lost everything. You gained everything. I'm sorry. The villagers watched from a distance. Everyone expected Ethan to turn him away. After all, Victor had taken his family's farm. He had humiliated him. He had even tried to destroy his crops. Instead, Ethan walked forward. He held out his hand. If I keep hatred alive, I become its prisoner. Victor looked at Ethan with tears in his eyes. Slowly, he accepted the handshake. That single moment taught the village something greater than success. It taught forgiveness. Years passed. The abandoned land became the largest farm in the region. Hundreds of families earned honest livelihoods there. At the entrance stood a simple wooden sign. It didn't mention Ethan's name. It simply read, "Dreams grow here." Visitors often asked why. Ethan would smile and point toward the old barren hill. Because every great harvest begins where everyone else sees nothing. Many years later, an old man walked slowly through the same fields with his grandson. The little boy asked, "Grandpa, were you really the boy everyone laughed at?" Ethan smiled. "Yes. Weren't you angry?" He looked across the endless golden fields shining beneath the sunset. "No. Because people who laugh at your dream are only watching the beginning of your story. They never stay long enough to see the ending." The boy looked around in amazement. "Grandpa, what is the greatest secret of success?" Ethan gently placed his grandfather's old notebook into the child's hands. "The greatest secret is to keep going. Especially on the days when nobody believes in you." The wind carried those words across the fields. Across the village. Across generations. And somewhere, someone who was about to give up found the courage to take one more step. Moral: people may laugh at your dream because they cannot see your vision. Never let temporary criticism become a permanent excuse. Dream quietly. Work consistently. Stay patient. One day, the same people who doubted you will ask, "How did you do it?" And your answer will be simple: "I never stopped."